We got an early look at the Roku Express 4K Plus, which is the first Roku streaming player under $40, coming up on this streamable first look. What's up, streamers? It's Jason from the Streamable, and today I'm going to show you the Roku Express 4K Plus, which at $39.99 is the first Roku 4K streamer, which includes a remote with TV controls for under $40. I'm going to go through everything that you need to know about it, and then tell you at the end whether you should buy it. But before we get going, make sure you hit that like button. The more people who like this, the more people will see it, and the more great content I can keep bringing to you. And make sure you hit subscribe, because one of our first 10,000 subscribers has a chance to win a brand new Roku Ultra, and we're almost there, so you don't want to miss your chance. In April, Roku announced the all-new Roku Express 4K Plus, which more or less replaces the Roku Premiere in their streaming player lineup. Just like the Roku Premiere, the Roku Express 4K Plus streams in 4K, streams in HDR, but it also adds a few new features at the same $39.99 price point. First, and most importantly, the Roku Express 4K Plus comes with a Roku voice remote with TV controls, which to me was the biggest knock on the Roku Premiere. This remote not only lets you control the Roku itself, but also lets you control the power and volume on your TV. And we haven't seen this very much in sub $40 streaming players. Also, unlike the Roku Premiere, the Roku 4K Express Plus not only includes HDR, but also includes HDR10 and HDR10 Plus. HDR10 Plus is similar to Dolby Vision, which right now is only available on the Roku Ultra. So with the Roku Express 4K Plus replacing the Roku Premiere, what is the difference between the Roku Express 4K Plus and its more expensive Roku Streaming Stick Plus, which is $49.99? Well, right now, the major difference is really the form factor. The Roku Express 4K Plus, which surprisingly is very, very small, doesn't have the HDMI built into the device like the Streaming Stick Plus. But if you're worried about it being big and bulky, you don't have to worry about that at all. The device is about half the size of a Roku remote. And if you're worried about mounting and not having an HDMI cable, Roku solves that for you too in this device. The Roku comes with a premium HDMI cable, so you can just connect it right out of the box. And it also comes with a sticker that you can place on top of the Roku Express 4K Plus, so you can just stick it on the bottom of your TV, kind of like an oversized IR blaster. So what else is different between the Roku Express 4K Plus and the Roku Streaming Stick Plus? Well, the other major difference is wireless. The Streaming Stick Plus includes quad band wireless, while the Express 4K Plus just includes dual band. But in real life experience in our tests, we don't actually think you'll notice that big of a difference unless you're really far away from your wireless network and you don't have a mesh network set up. We actually tested it in a far away off room. We do have a mesh network, and the streaming performance was just as good on the Express 4K Plus as we saw on our Streaming Stick Plus. The Roku Express 4K Plus also has a micro USB port, which can be used for a couple things. Primarily, you can use it to power your device if it's not powered over HDMI. But on top of that, you can also use third-party Ethernet adapters. So if your wireless connectivity isn't good enough, you can always buy an external Ethernet adapter and plug it directly into your router. To set up, you just enter your email address, and if you've ever had a Roku account, it sends you an email where you can just log into your account, and it will just automatically download all your favorite apps that you've used before. As someone who sets up and tests a ton of Roku devices, this saves so much time in the process. And in fact, a lot of streaming apps on Roku actually automatically log you in, so you won't even need to re-enter your username and password in a lot of of different streaming apps. So the Roku Express 4K Plus supports HD and 4K at 60 frames per second. On top of that, it supports HDR, HDR10, and HDR10 Plus. HDR10 Plus usually comes on some smart TVs, primarily those on Samsung, some Vizio, and some Hisense TVs. It is similar to Dolby Vision in that it improves every single frame of your video and is supported in most streaming apps. But if you really need Dolby Vision, you'll have to upgrade to the Roku Ultra for that. In terms of audio, it supports stereo and Dolby Digital and pass-through of a lot of other things like Dolby Atmos. If you want true Dolby Atmos support again, you'll need the Roku Ultra at $100 for that. It also doesn't have Bluetooth support, which again, in terms of Roku streaming players, only comes in the Roku Ultra. So my biggest concern when I started testing this is I was really worried about the performance. Generally, the lower the price of the streaming device, the worse it is. But in the case of the Roku Express 4K Plus, that is not the case at all. In fact, Roku switched out the chipset on this device compared to almost all of their other streaming players. This uses a Realtek chip instead of an ARM Cortex. It also has 1 GB of RAM, which is exactly the same as the Roku Streaming Stick Plus and the Roku Premiere, and double that of the old Roku Express and Roku Express Plus. So how did it actually feel? Well, it felt incredibly snappy. I was very surprised how snappy the interface felt. And when we actually launched different streaming apps, we tested things like Fubo TV, Sling TV, and Netflix. Both in terms of channel launch times and video playback times, it actually had very near performance to what we saw on the Roku Ultra, especially when the apps got into memory. In some cases, it was 1 or 2 seconds slower than the Ultra. In one case, it was actually faster than what we saw on the Roku Ultra. In terms of video playback, almost every time it was about a half a second to a second slower than the Roku Ultra. But in terms of real world, what you'd actually feel if you weren't testing them side by side, I think you will be incredibly surprised with how snappy the Roku Express 4K Plus feels. So here's the question, should you buy it? Well, I think it is an incredible deal at just $39.99, and to be honest, during promo periods it may be marked down to even $29.99 or $24.99, which we've seen during holiday events like Mother's Day and Black Friday. They also have a cheaper version that is sold exclusively through Walmart at just $34.99, which is called the Roku Express 4K, but with that you're giving up the remote with TV controls, which I do not think is worth that $5 saving. So if it was me, if I was in the market for a new Roku streaming player, I would probably choose this over the Roku Streaming Stick Plus for most of my non-primary TVs. For those, I'm still going Roku Ultra because I'm looking for the top of the line performance, but at just $39.99, to me it's worth the $10 savings over the Roku Streaming Stick Plus. The only reason I would choose the Streaming Stick Plus over this is if you need better wireless connectivity and you just prefer the streaming stick form factor. Some people like that because you can just throw it in your backpack when you travel and you have everything you need in just one single device. But overall, I was incredibly impressed with the Roku Express 4K Plus. It is incredible value at just $40 and at $10 cheaper than the Chromecast with Google TV and the Fire Stick 4K. I think it is a bargain for people who want a 4K streaming device. Well, that's it. That's everything you need to know about the brand new Roku Express 4K Plus. Let me know in the comments below, are you gonna buy this new device? And if you found this video helpful, make sure you hit that like button. The more people like this, the more people see this review, and the more great content I can keep bringing to you. And make sure you hit subscribe because I want you to win a Roku Ultra device. And if you're one of our first 10,000 subscribers, you have a chance to win. And make sure you visit us all week long at thestreamable.com for the latest in streaming news and reviews. And for The Streamable, I'm Jason. Have a great week.